Welcome to WonderCon at home, and this is Saving Throw Show's panel on advanced dungeon mastering. I am Rick Budd, and I am going to be your moderator for the next hour or so. And let me introduce you to our panelists, Saving Throw Dungeon Masters. In no particular order, we have here Aabria Iyengar from Pirates of Salt Bay.
Yep.
And we have Reuben Bresler from the Broken Pact.
Hello.
And Stephen Pope from New Pantheon.
Hey, everyone.
And with some time to talk, we thought it would be nice to get together some of Saving Throw's DMs and just talk about, not quite the basics of dungeon mastering, not quite how to go through the books and find what to do, but, the more advanced issues that come up when you're running a game and a game goes on and you have to deal with, God, how many facets are there? You're a storyteller, you're an improver, you're, the adjudicator of rules, it's like you're a manager of people. So let's just dive right in and start, to start the conversation. So let's start with Aabria. So when you play long campaigns, you are bound to come into long combat encounters.
Yes.
It is a big part of the game, and and people love, those big battles that, take a lot of time and create the drama in games. So the downside there is that long battles are long. So how do you keep your players engaged during long combat encounters?
Oh man. I really like this. This is a thing that I think I am personally very nervous about and get very skittish about, just because I know that the meta narrative of how a long combat is going is very cool, but in that moment to moment, it's really easy to have player focus slip away. Or if something happens where they're like, okay, I've crafted Pirates of Salt Bay is in 5th edition D&D. So there's a lot of I'm a spellcaster, so I picked my spell and what I'm going to do before it gets to my turn. And then the board state changes so much that they have that weird panic and everything's changed, so they can't necessarily do what they were going to do before. And struggling with that a lot. I think I like to use something I picked up from Powered by the Apocalypse a lot, which is allowing the other players to take part in collaborative storytelling. So because there's a lot of what to do when there's a miss, instead of just no selling it and saying okay, your spell doesn't hit, what happens? I like to ask other players at the table, it didn't work, but why is it worse than what they thought? And trying to get other people's input on what happens and how it heightens the story and accelerates the combat is one of my favorite ways to make sure that everyone's invested and everyone's listening and everyone feels like they're contributing, even if they're not the one literally doing a punch at any given point in the encounter. So that's probably my favorite move to pull, which is on crits in either direction. How is it worse than they expected, or how is it even better than they expected?
That's great.
Yeah.
I am so going to use that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Also,
I like that.
As a GM, I don't know if it's you. I know we all have the stigma of being evil and cunning. I have never been meaner to a player and to a character than than a player has been to their own character.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give them a chance to shoot themselves in the foot, they'll do things 11 times more. I was was it?
Yeah.
Oh God.
The
foot's just gone. Okay.
The players secretly want trauma. They secretly want their characters to go through some stuff.
Yeah.
And so if they're bringing it upon themselves or bringing it upon their fellow party members, all the better.
Yep. That weird sense of agency where they're yeah, no, the whole leg's gone. You're
Yeah.
Okay. You sure?
That's called character development.
Yeah.
One small thing I would like to add for upping your GMing game. This isn't a 101 class. This is an advanced class, right? You all know how to GM. Right? Yeah, exactly. You're all you all know what you're doing by this point. How do you improve and make it so that those long combats don't slog on forever? Because they can. Especially big, tanky, like a Cyclops, something with 1 million hit points, that's just a big sack of damage. Those take a while. And so how do you make those go faster? 2 things I highly recommend are really work on your addition and your subtraction. Like, it's as simple as that. I'm very fast with simple arithmetic because I played poker for a long time. I've been DMing for a long time. So I just know how to add numbers very fast. So if you can look down at 66 and add those numbers up in 3 seconds as opposed to in 6 seconds, that adds up over the course of an hour and a half long battle. Digital dice rollers also help with that, of course, if you're able to use those sorts of things. One other thing I would highly recommend doing is making combats you don't want to carbon copy combats. Like, just having a monster and your players fight, I mean, that's fine, but that's going to get tired eventually. In a longer campaign, you're going to want to introduce some environmental effects. You're going to want to introduce lair actions. You're going to want to introduce a timer or puzzles in the middle of your fight. Yes. Other challenges that, maybe one character has to be picking a lock while the rest of the characters are fighting, or something else is happening, like the water is slowly rising every round or something along those lines. So there are ways to make combats that can go on for a long time feel fun and interactive.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. And so Aabria stresses collaborative storytelling skills, and Reuben's going with,
get good, scrub.
Get good. Honestly, it's one of the most important things is knowing how to add numbers fast. And also, it doesn't matter. Like, look down at the dice and be like, that could be 43 or it could be 46. It really doesn't matter as much as the 5 seconds you're taking to add those numbers up.
Excuse me, are you advocating for DMs fudging the dice?
I am
not getting in this. I'm not getting in this Twitter debate.
I am not advocating that.
You are.
I am home.
I'm pretty sure I heard you just say.
I'm advocating fuzzing my brain, not the dice.
Well, DM's fudging the dice is for another panel on another day. There's advanced DM cheating.
Right.
Cheating.
Rude.
That's fantastic stuff. Let's throw something at Stephen. Stephen, and I guess for everybody too. Other than the DM's guide, what is your favorite resource for GMing?
Ooh, okay. Steal everything.
Thievery? That's what you're...
Absolutely. A good artist copies, a great artist steals. I am a huge fan of the novel House of Leaves. So any chance I get, there is an endless hallway and ancient stairs or something like that. I really love Indiana Jones. That's like saying like ice cream. So yes, you're going to be chased by a giant boulder at some point. I've been reading Worldwide Wrestling, which has this amazing mechanic in it where how popular you are determines how successful the whole business venture is. I will incorporate that into my campaign somehow. The Dungeon Master's Guide, it's a guide. You're supposed to kind of just take that book and then move forward with that. So really, I love to read other role-playing games and kind of just see what else is there. I also find that borrowing from older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, because I'm not delusional, I know you're all here for that, all right? I know it sells.
Now, what's D&D? I have never heard of it.
It's a thing for nerds. Don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. I'm very cool. So
it's what I set my phone to at night so that nobody calls me.
Yes, yeah. Sounds right. That sounds right.
Got him.
There you go. Older edition, there is almost 50 years of Dungeons & Dragons material out there. I'm currently running an Eberron campaign for some friends, and The Eberron book for 5th edition is fine, but if I want to go really in depth about stuff, there are about 15 other books from previous editions that are available online or news bookstores if you're really lucky. And those are so much more helpful for running my game. So steal everything, commit crimes, and read old books.
Yes.
No, that's awesome. Great answer. So
Hold on. I want to jump in and agree.
Yeah.
Please do.
But I am definitely a person that likes to steal from like current fiction on TV and movies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So,
hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that loves to watch a thing with friends and then argue about it for like
Mm-hmm. Yep.
hours after. And I think I really enjoy listening to things that people bump on. So for example, my whole friend group is watching the 3rd season of Westworld right now. And I love it. And it's a rocky show. But listening to how other people like come up on like themes and proper execution of like ideas and concepts and like motifs and narratives, like picking people's brains, especially when they don't like something, is so enlightening as a DM. Because they're a really good test group for like, okay, if I try to do something like that, what do I have to make sure that like I definitely delineate or definitely handle a certain way so that like bigger things that like, yeah, we can just go through and like do a bunch of fetch quests and like become very powerful. But like the really good games, the advanced GM tactics here is to try to like weave in narrative and theme into your plot. So you can use people's response to current fiction and get a good barometer for how they'll respond to like the inlaid themes and motifs in your own game too.
So, like, real quick, what's some current fiction that you're arguing about / stealing from?
My big ones are the ending of Westworld, the ending of Game of Thrones, the ending of Westworld. Any of those like really big arc things.
Yeah.
A lot of Wheel of Time, because there's a big split in my group about like people who read it when they were younger and really, really liked it. And then me and some other girls who are reading it as adults who are like, interesting. He's very not good at writing women. So because like right? Dudes writing women is my favorite thing to just sit back and dunk on. It's an all-star game.
I got a Twitter to send you later.
But there's a lot of the difference between like plot and the things that people respond well to when they're younger versus like themes that people can like reach out and like have more emotional responses to as adults. And I think that's the big like takeaway that I have, that trying to be cognizant of putting meaning behind like the encounters and the things that your players go through every day and having it lead somewhere big, because the moment your players trip onto that like, oh, this is a lot like, and I'm feeling how it's all come together. Like those are like my favorite things in the world.
So for those of you who haven't watched season 3 of the Broken Pact, season 3 of the Broken Pact was hilarious for me the whole time, because I based season 3 on The Wizard of Oz. The entire season is Wizard of Oz. Like, you watch if I told you before watching the show that it was The Wizard of Oz, you'd have been like, you're straight up copying, like just stealing outright the plot to Wizard of Oz, which was my intention with season 3 in Avernus.
Steal from the best.
I've straight up stolen episodes of Law and Order for my home game. There's a million episodes of Law and Order. You can always go do that. Obviously, I'm a big Magic the Gathering fan. I use flavor texts and the stories from old Magic sets as quotes that I pretend like I said so that my NPCs sound more badass than I do. I love doing stuff like that. I think that those are great ways to flavor whatever you're interested in, whatever your players want. You can always pull that in. If your players want to, if they love Mad Max Fury Road, give them a car chase, whatever, cool, do that. And to bring it all the way back around, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. For all the ills and all of the crap that 4th edition got, it did a lot of things right. One of them...
There are dozens of us. Dozens.
One of them that they got right was there is so much lore. Oh my God, there is so much lore. If you want to fill out your world with canon lore from Dungeons and Dragons, there are so many splash books for 4th edition. I love the chase mechanics in 4th edition much more than I don't think 5th edition chase mechanics are very good. I like the 4th edition chase mechanics. I like the skill challenges in 4th edition. I think that those are great. Obviously, Critical Role uses a ton of the old Pathfinder skill challenges, particularly in their resurrection rituals and things like that new DMs are finally picking up on. But there's a lot of stuff that I use in my games that have nothing to do with a Dungeon Master's Guide or a player's handbook.
It's your turn to start one off. So let me just pick up on some of that stuff you said there, but take it in a different direction, I think for me, but it's so Reuben, you first. What makes an NPC memorable, and how do you balance NPCs with the personalities of the player characters?
Yeah, that's tricky. So first, there's a difference between a Dungeons and Dragons game at your house and one done for television or one done for stream. NPCs for performance, where there's an audience, are a lot more difficult to do than just at home. Because at home, you can kind of BS your way through it. You can also do asides of your players are trying to go down a line, and then you can be like, hey, by the way, just let that slide, right? Oh my God, there's a cat. Sorry. I got distracted.
Oh.
But anyway, sorry. So let's glossing over that fact. I like to create my personally, I like to create my NPCs ahead of time. I like to assign 1 or 2 characteristics to a voice and then write down a couple of descriptive words about that character. And I have a little notebook of these where it's like, this is, for example, this is Lazav. Lazav was the Demir Guild Master in season 1. He's a very secretive, powerful shapeshifter entity. And so he had a stage whisper kind of voice that was very slow and methodical, but very overly enunciated. And he was emotionless was a word I had written down, and logical, I think, were some of the words I had written down. And that created a very specific type of talking to my character who was in that conversation, right? And so that's the kind of character, as opposed to Mookie. Mookie is this old dryad character who's very friendly and old and sort of has a sing-songy voice along with his old voice. He's sort of just very nice to talk to. And so you can make, and you don't even need to do voices. You can make NPCs that don't have voices memorable with just pacing or even body language. If you're playing a dragon, play a dragon. You know what I mean? Do stuff that puts you into that mode, and your players will attach to it.
Steven, Bria, same. Yeah.
If I can hop in on here, I am one of those GMs who has 4 voices, and one of them's probably a leprechaun on a good day. I do have to say, remembering that NPCs are still characters. It's part of the title, non-player character. So remember what they want, and suddenly their actions make a lot more sense for you and the table. And 2, if you're like me and can't do voices, just remember how they talk. And what I mean by that is, on New Pantheon, one of the recurring NPCs is Grandpa Nathan, who is a player character's grandfather / mentor. And he's tired, and he's angry, and he just wants to go watch Judge Judy. And why do I have to deal with this right now? He's a little Southern, and I can't do a Southern accent, but I just remember he's tired, and he's angry, so he's going to talk like a tired, grumpy man. And that makes him a lot easier for me to play, and a lot easier for the players to tell, oh, we're dealing with Nathan again.
Cool. Yeah, all right. So yeah, all right. A big topic that is on a lot of people's minds right now, and has been something in the ether saving throw for a while, is the idea of using safety tools in games. Let's starting with Aabria, what kind of safety tools do you like to use? How do you use them at your table without making them feel intrusive, but at the same time making them accessible? When people need them.
Yeah, I think there's two interesting ways to go about it. Like, obviously, we're living in a world where most sessions are happening remotely. And I think the ability to have like a visual, like non-game component, like if the video chat is the game component, having a chat on the side is actually really helpful as far as a safety tool goes. So I've played for the last, like literally as long as I've been streaming, I've played with an X card as a safety tool. And for those who don't know, an X card is literally like a physical card when you guys are playing in person that everyone at the table can have within arm's distance. And if any content ever comes up that for whatever reason people are just bumping on, you tap it, the table agrees to wipe and like change whatever it was and redirect around it and never bring it up. So it's the safety involved in it is knowing that like if I go to tap it, I will not be questioned about it. So if there's something that I'm like extremely sensitive about, or just something I don't feel like getting into right now at the table, like you named an NPC after my dad and I'm supposed to flirt with him and like I will not do that. Please just change the name. Like, so I like having the ability to use an X card in chat too. So we play all of our games on Zoom, and everyone has the ability to type in the letter X. But I also play with. So there's a lot of very dramatic scenes that happen in my game on Pirates of Salt Bay. I didn't think it was going to happen, but then everyone decided to like have a for-your consideration campaign, and there are some moments where it's a little easier in person, but you can't really tell as much on video chat if you're just a very good actor or going through some. So I like to just put in a little like, oh, question mark for like, are you okay? And they can respond either in the chat or just nod or say something out loud that lets me know like, oh, I'm just a classically trained actress. Or like, no, this is reaching something inside me. I would like to move away from it. So the ability to check in back and forth with my players. And also, at the end of the day, I'm not afraid to just jump into, like, I know we're talking about how to not be intrusive, but I think the real beauty of a safety tool is knowing that, like, if you need to get information, just break the game and get it and make sure that everyone's doing okay. Because at the end of the day, like, yes, we are doing this for entertainment and you guys are doing it to entertain yourselves at home, but like, that means that everyone needs to be feeling good about what's going on. So if it involves me going like, okay, hold on really quick. Girl, you good? Like, oh, okay. And then keep going. Like, that's fine. And everyone will forget about it 2 minutes after.
Steven, did you want to go next?
Yeah. So I made the grave mistake of reading the Amazon reviews of Pathfinder 2nd Edition on line on Amazon, and I'm still recovering from that because it got review bombed because it mentions these safety tools and people are thinking somehow this makes the game weak or something. It bugs me on a very visceral level to even consider that there are people out there who are sociopathic when they run their games. Am I alone on that one, Reuben, Aabria?
Oh my God, no. It's a very weird thing. Like, whatever, I'm gonna spill tea on this. Like, this weird sense of like machismo in like pretend things that you say out loud with your fucking face. Like, you're not really slaying a dragon and I will punch you in the throat. Like, please calm down.
Right. Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games in general are a tool for experiencing empathy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off if you had more to go. No, okay, sorry. They're a tool for experiencing empathy, and the ability to live in another person's shoes is a reason why the Dungeons and Dragons community at large is great. And for the most part, everyone understands the need for safety tools. And even those that don't understand them should still use them just to make everyone else feel better. Just like, obviously I don't let's put it this way. I don't like asparagus, but I'm not going to object to a party that has it, right? So have them there because some people need them or want them. Some of the safety tools that I like to use are I am a soccer referee. I have a yellow and red card system, very similar to the X card system. At saving throw, in that little desk to your right are 2 yellows and 2 reds that I left there by accident because I forgot that I left them there. But they are there.
I will be stealing those.
Absolutely. And you should.
Thank you for forgetting.
And put them on both sides of the table so that when if a scene occurs and a player goes, I don't like where this is going, let's change the direction, they can toss a yellow. And if they say we need to stop the action now, we need to probably take a break, they can toss a red. We had an issue in an episode of the Broken Pact where I just didn't see it coming. It didn't even occur to me, but that's why the safety tools are there. Where one of my players almost used it, decided that it was fine. It was a really fun episode, and afterwards, and another important thing is pre-care and aftercare, discussing your issues with your players one-on-one and in a group. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you with that.
Oh, no.
I just wanted to say, and that is more or less why you want these things, because 99% of the time, you're not going to use them.
Correct. But when you need them, you need them.
Yeah.
Especially when you're live on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely need, hopefully, an unobtrusive way to let your dungeon master and players communicate with each other.
Right.
So the issue that we had on the Broken Pact was it was a really fun episode and everybody had a great time, but it was a body swap episode, sort of, where players entered a weird dream state and became their guild's masters, and for the original masters from 10,000 years ago. And that meant that players were going into other people's bodies. What that meant in the show was that I accidentally put a trans person into a male person's body. It didn't occur to me that that would be a thing that could happen or would be a problem. It didn't end up being a problem. It ended up being great. But that's the kind of thing that you just need to look out for, right? And so all of those are very important. Having those check-ins ahead of time and having them after, even if you're not playing the X cards or using the X cards, are important. I will also say I've picked up a couple of great habits from LARP. I've been an avid LARPer for about a year now. And you can't just drop out of character in the middle of LARP. So one of the things that's fun, that's good to do, and there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of tough situations, this is the check-in symbol. If you're in the middle of a conversation, you can just do this in the middle of a conversation, and then you can give a thumbs up or you can give a thumbs down. You can do a hold, right? You can do
I'm
stuff
just going
like
to
that.
jump in really quick and say the OK sign is questionable now.
Well, sure.
Maybe come up with a slightly different symbol.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can just do a thumbs up. Like a small nod, a thumbs up, like a subconscious micro gesture to be able to check in. And also bleed maintenance. I don't know if bleed is a term that is commonly used, but I use it a ton in LARP, which is your feelings. Yeah, your feelings as a character in the game and your feelings as a person outside of the game. You can have positive bleed, right? Your character in a game could be in love with a character in the game, and then that can lead to a relationship, or you can become friends, right? And that's positive bleed. There is negative bleed. The way that your character interacts with another character. I don't like that this character did this in combat, and now me outside of the game thinks less of this person. Bleed maintenance is a big thing for Dungeon Masters to be aware of. Make sure that there are no issues between your players, and when you see them, tamp them down before they ruin your game.
This is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I jump in with one more thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of like the before and after care, you absolutely reminded me of something that we do. I think we do across the board at Saving Throw, because Dom is amazing and built like a template for us. Is lines and veils. So this is the like speaking before the game starts or before a session starts. It's a living document that we keep around that's full of sort of goes and no goes. So a line is something that like we agree as a group and it's proffered by any individual or talked about as a group that like will not happen in the game. Like we don't want to deal with, so hi, I'm Black. I don't necessarily love dealing with the trauma of racism because I deal with it in everyday life. So I probably don't want to play it in the game because that's my escape. So that's usually a line for me. It's just like, I don't want to, can we just not play in 1950s like Selma? That's just a big old pass for me. Thank you. Veils are things that can exist in the world, but you don't necessarily want to see on camera. It's the exit pursued by bear. And knowing that those things happen off the camera is fine. So a lot of that is nighttime behaviors are usually like a fade to black. They happen in the world because that's how our players were born, but we don't necessarily want to see it in the game. Other than that, I like having that conversation with my table, knowing that there's usually one or two like real wild phobias that I didn't know about. And because very specifically in Pirates of Salt Bay, my main NPC is the villain that speaks to them all the time. So there's a lot of like pushing boundaries of like what's going to get in your head, what will bother you. It's good to know like maybe don't use this kind of like visualization or gore because it will genuinely freak out the player versus like something that's just kind of cool and creepy. I'm trying not to like be too specific about it because I don't know if there's anyone in the audience that's like, ew, I didn't think about that thing with the eyes. No, thank you. So
yeah, there was a villain in season 1 of the Broken Pact that I heavily implied was in human trafficking, but never said it outright. That is a veil. That's an example of a veil of saying you, one of you has seen this character outside of this specific building before. And it's like, okay, we get what that means, but you don't have to show it.
yeah, nice.
Veils are great for stuff like that.
So I'm hearing like from everybody, it's like, communication is a big key to this. You got to talk with your players first and establish people's boundaries and know what they are up for and what they are not up for. And then like redundant levels of ways to check in, ways for them to signal you, ways for you to block off areas from other players going into them. And, I mean, it's greatest to hear is that, like pretty much everything on Saving Throw, it's like everybody here seems to place that above any other consideration in the game.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. That's so many great ideas there.
And like I said, 99% of the time, you're not going to be aware that they're there. You're going to forget you put that X card out there.
But if it's 99% of the time and you've GM'd 100 episodes, guess what? One of those episodes, you're going to need it.
Bingo.
And as a GM, never feel bad that like a safety tool is being invoked. That just means that like your table is engaged enough to want to make sure that like things are going in a positive path. If you are a GM that likes to like push boundaries, like have safety tools out there. It gives you a lot more freedom to go wild, knowing that like if anything truly traumatic gets introduced, it'll get taken care of.
Yes.
So I feel it as untethering from the anxiety as a GM of like, am I going too far? Like,
absolutely.
How's everyone doing with this? Because I think a lot of the hard thing about being a GM is living in your head going like, is this cool? Do they like this? I hope so. And safety tools are just one of the myriad ways that we facilitate communication between the GM and the table.
It's a great way of thinking about it. All right. So to take the other side of that, let's say, Stephen, what is a fun thing that you like to do in-game to surprise your players?
Boy.
Too on the spot?
This is that is a hard question.
As one of Stephen's players, I am very interested in this answer.
Okay. All right. I call it the drive-by feeling. And that is when your character has an NPC that they care about, because as someone who runs a lot of games, eventually you're going to start asking your player characters, not just what class and whatever they're playing. You're going to be like, so is their family alive? Is there an ex? And what I like to do is wait for a really dramatic moment, and during the downslope of that dramatic moment, surprise, your mom's visiting.
Wow.
That was literally what happened to my character, and it was
Just
really sweet. I was just like, I'm gonna call my mom after this game's over.
Emotional whiplash.
The emotional whiplash, the drive-by feel. There's a lot of names for it, but really it comes down to, okay, now feel something.
Same question, if there are any thoughts on this one.
So one of my favorite things to do, especially to break up what I perceive to be a long slog of like a dungeon crawl or a storyline, is to get my other players, particularly if I want to have a one-on-one with a player and their character, I get the other players to play NPCs in that scene.
Yes.
So this is a lot of fun because I like getting really deep into characters' backstories, but I also don't want the other players sitting at the table doing nothing for 45 minutes while I'm playing 4 characters. So for example, I had an episode where Lucian, who's played by Gaurav, his parents showed up with their assistant, and his parents were played by Jordan and Riley, and then their assistant was played by Ashlyn. And that scene was like 45 minutes where it was Lucian of the Broken Pact, and that's it. So getting the players and also giving them some clothing props to get into character, bringing a secret box of props, especially if you're doing costuming, and getting them to change in the middle of a scene, not letting them know ahead of time, that's a ton of fun for me. Individual skill challenges. There was an episode where in order to get out of a situation, they needed to perform in a circus. And there were 4 different things they needed to do. And then one person had to go up on the trapeze, and one person had to dodge flaming rotten fruit and like that kind of stuff. There are lots of ways that you can, break up the monotony of kill monster, loot body, move to next room, check door, unlock door, fight monster, etc., etc. Dungeons and Dragons is a combat system that enables for role-playing, but that doesn't mean that there aren't creative ways for you to use that combat system for non-combat situations.
I'm going to jump in on this because I also have still in the like one person gets a focus scene and everyone else plays NPCs is incredibly cool. I've watched the episodes where you like give everyone just if you're a GM that doesn't deal with props necessarily, the thing I will ask you to do is let your players play NPCs in the scene and you take notes on them and bring those NPCs back. And now the things that your players have established are now true forever. And I did that a couple times. My players were in the Eric Hooker Kingdom, and Dirty Hank, played by Eric Reichert, was having this like familial moment with this like big squawky ridiculous family, and I let all the other NPCs just pick people in the family to play, and they were like little kids and like grandmas.
It's great.
And it was just really nice because they did something slightly different than the scene than even I expected, because I actually like let them go a little more. Like I had my main NPC who was sort of just offering the theme of like, this is what it feels like to be a family, and of course you're welcome to ours, but don't you have one too? Which was like a whole thing that Dirty Hank got to realize, but like letting your players put a spin on it, because I like going back to the shared narrative control idea. I think it's really nice to be a very good GM. I think it's really important to make everyone have that feeling at some point across the campaign, that they are helping to craft and drive the narrative, not just as a person reacting to stimuli, but someone that's offering something too. And I think those moments where they get to be NPCs or like have like strong interpersonal moments with like a one-off like character that was just for them helps them feel like the things that they're doing in the game couldn't just be done by any other person sitting down with that character sheet and going through the motions.
One other thing I wanted to bring up, Rick, that you're the master of is on Tempting Fate. You do this constantly, is you provide these really creative challenges for your players, that they need to perform or do something, or give them a secret that they need to do during play that the other players. So there's a little bit of friendly rivalry happening.
I'm stealing that. Thank you.
Right. So there's
that's so stolen.
Yeah, Tempting Fate is just a masterclass in
Oh.
how to let your players just go nuts, right? This is advanced. Well, yeah, checks in the mail. One of the things about this group and this panel is this is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons dungeon mastering. Two things. One is we call them the players and the dungeon master. We're a player too. If we're having fun, everyone's having fun. That's the way it works. Like, if the performer, if you're going to a concert or whatever, if you're seeing a stand-up comedian, if they're having fun, you're having fun, everyone's having fun. So do that. Another thing is when you reach a certain level, and I've seen y'all enter this state, there's like a Zen-like state that you get in as a dungeon master where you're like, I kind of know what's happening in the first 5 minutes of this episode. And that's all I'm preparing for because I don't know what'll happen after that. And it took me a while to get there. I was a write everything down, plan every beat dungeon master, even through the first season and a half of the Broken Pact.
Oh, girl, you can't do that.
No, it was stressful. I was like panicking. It was bad. And now I barely have 2 pages of notes anymore when I walk into a game because I'm not there to tell my story. I am there to facilitate the players tell their story. And so there's no way to teach you how to get to that moment, but you'll get there when you do enough rote repetition, and you'll find it.
Steven, right now, a lot of GMs have to take their games online for the first time. What are some tips and tricks or things that you think that they should be thinking about?
So as someone who likes to do theater of the mind, my transition to meat space to digital space was a lot easier. Hey, we're on Google Hangouts now. Don't worry about it. However, if you're someone who actually does the work and builds maps, I'm finding tools like Roll20 are invaluable. They are so useful and so convenient, and honestly, it's easier than it ever was. I've been gaming for about 12 years now, and I remember the first time we ever tried to do a Skype game, it was a disaster of epic proportions, and now you have digital tabletop simulator and all that stuff. Just be prepared to wing it a little. You're going to have some bumps and hiccups. Bandwidth is something I never had to deal with before, but now we do.
Same question real quick to the other two.
So I have yet to do a live streamed game, but I have DM'd over Zoom and I've DM'd over Discord. I have DM'd over Zoom. When you DM over Zoom, as people are using, we are now the Zoom generation, everybody. People are using this app. You can choose a virtual background, which I really enjoy doing particularly for NPCs.
Okay, Zoomer.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Zoomer. In much the same way that Jordan Caves Callerman uses like a mustache with a stick on it or puts on a specific hat, or Gaurav does this also in the Eberron show, where instead of a costume change, you do a background change to be like, all right, now you're talking to the guy that runs the casino. You have a fantasy casino background. Now you're in the market. Here's a market background, right? And so that's a real easy way to do that. For Discord, push to talk, you have to use push to talk, or else everyone is always talking over each other at all times. And being able to paste in maps and stuff is helpful. And getting everybody on the same page, being able to at least show them images of, this is what a city looks like, or this is what the lockbox that you found looks like. helps. And even if you're doing theater of the mind, personally, I'm a very crunchy DM. I like having my grid maps. I like the competitive combat min-maxed. That's me. I love that stuff. It's not good TV, but I love that stuff because it's a really interesting mental challenge. It's like 5-dimensional chess for me. That I haven't found a good way to do online yet. Because I do like Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, and I've used them before, but my brain doesn't work that way. Like, I have to have the map in front of me. Like, I have to print out the puzzle to do the puzzle kind of deal. Like, I'm not a spreadsheets kind of person. So, but it's all, we're all learning together on this. Nobody's an expert.
Yeah.
Aabria?
Just to jump in, I think a good, on top of the just general good practices with push to talk and staying muted, knowing that your players and even you, I have ADHD, so we're all on the internet, and you're always one tab away from doing 19 other things or interacting with a cat that just needs to be petted just a little bit and is clawing the out of my leg right now in order to get my attention. And that we're dealing with a whole world where everything else is happening too, and honoring that might mean that while you're doing online sessions, go a little slower with the plot. People's attention might come in and out, and they need to be able to jump in and pick up exactly where you are and what you're doing without necessarily having to go I'm so sorry, who are we talking to right now? So the visual cues of yes, use the internet. It's a feature, not a bug. Change the background, install Snap Camera, and get a filter on there to make yourself look different if you don't want to rely on just your voice to communicate the difference in NPCs. But just knowing that you might need to pull back some of the high detail and pacing in order to match everyone's current, hi, I'm in my house and therefore there's lots of things for me to do and I'm here a little bit.
Yeah, no, I relate to that hard. So we're coming right down to it. So real quick, in just a couple of words, let's start. Reuben, you first. Complete this sentence for me. I love it when a DM
challenges me.
Ooh.
I love it when a DM shows me something I haven't seen. I love it when a DM builds enough of a world that they don't have to talk for 45 minutes.
Yes.
Aabria.
I love it when a DM includes me and the things that I'm trying to telegraph as a player, that maybe I didn't have to send you my 10 pages of backstory and personal thoughts and dramatic polls and character research, but you've been listening to what I've said and are giving me that back.
Steven?
I love it when a DM is as big of a fan of my character as I am.
Yeah.
That's a huge one for me.
All great answers. I think we are just about coming down to it here.
Wait,
so.
what do you love when it...
Yeah!
You finish the sentence, Rick.
Come on, Rick!
I love it when a DM I love it... Hold on, what was the question? This is why I'm not the moderator.
I love it when a DM...
I love it when a DM makes lots of gratuitous penguin references. Actually, it's serious. It's I love it when a GM or DM, makes the storytelling really feel collaborative. It's when everybody is sort of surprised what's going on because it's not coming out the way any particular person thought it was going to, and everyone is genuinely sort of affecting everyone else's thing. It's finding that balance with your players. It feels that's always where I feel it comes to life for me. But I digress. Thank you all. This was a ton of fun, man. I had so many other questions I wish we could get to, but these were so many great answers. So real quick, let's go around the table. Tell the good people where they can find you. Start with Steven.
Okay, hi. You can find me online at StephenJPope22. Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. You can also find me on New Pantheon. We will be coming back for season 3. We're just figuring things out. You can also find me on Games We Never Play, the gaming exploratory podcast, and Uncanny Valley, Saving Throw's premier actual play podcast.
Reuben?
Hi, everybody. I'm the internet's Reuben Bresler. You can follow me at MoxRuby, MoxReuby on all of the social media channels. You can also find old episodes of the Broken Pact on the Dungeons & Dragons official YouTube channel. 3 seasons and 2 specials are available there. You can also catch me on the Magic the Gathering podcast, Magic Mics, that's M-I-C-S, it's a pun, live on Wednesday nights and on Thursdays on CoolStuffInc.com. We do our top 10 episodes, and podcasts are available. You can find it on wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm also the voice of Taltanic and the voice of American Eye on YouTube. So if you find yourself at home and need to watch some clickbait YouTube videos and want to hear the dulcet tones of Mox Ruby, you can go find yourself a couple of my videos over there.
I do. I will.
Absolutely.
Aabria.
I'm Aabria Iyengar. You can catch me on social media at Quiddy, Q-U-I-D-D-I-E. And in addition to GMing Pirates Assault Bay, which is currently live on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. PST on Saving Throw Show, I'm also a player in Steven's new Pantheon game. You can catch me in Kolok 1991 over on Hyper RPG. Reuben's there too as one of the main characters' dads, and it's great.
I died on camera, spoiler alert, in their LARP episode, which was great.
Spoilers! Stop. But that doesn't mean you stopped showing up, and that should let
It's
you
true.
know something about the game.
I want to be on the Twin Peaks thing. When do I get to die on camera?
Yeah.
Go
was
yell at Zach.
Okay.
On Wednesdays, you can catch me over at Scabby Rooster on Endymion's Gate, which is a sci-fi game in the Hill Folk system, which is super dramatic and like character focused. It's very, very cool. And then on Saturday mornings, you can catch me on It's Probably OK's Twitch channel playing Return to the Spider-Verse, which is we've decided to make a sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, and I'm playing Miles Morales.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah. Oh, and every Friday, 12-Sided Stories, which is a fully produced actual play podcast, releases a new episode. We're currently playing in the Call of Cthulhu system. It's called Otherworld London, and it's the 1890s, and stuff is Breaking Bad, and there's a bunch of other campaigns and stuff on there too. It's very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm Rick Budd. You can find me on Twitter at rbud913. I host Tempting Fate, which will be back probably in some form or another. Eventually, we are also kind of figuring it out. But you can find the archives on Saving Throws YouTube channel if you want to check some of that out. And thank you so much to the panelists. This was super interesting, and this was like a great conversation. Yeah, and thank you, I guess, to everyone who tuned in. And have a great virtual WonderCon.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.